All right, so I'm going to talk about some color mixing. First of all, when you have a color coming right out of the tube and you're preparing your palette, this is dioxazine purple, pretty standard purple. Make sure that as you're preparing your palette during each painting, for any painting session, that you take your dark colors, and many of our colors that come out of our tubes are dark, very dark values right out of the tube. So much of what we mix in color mixing needs to be in a halftone range. Very seldom we're using colors that dark. So do yourself a favor, do a little pre-mixing and get your valuable colors in a halftone range. Lighter halftone, middle range halftone, whatever. But this can save a lot of trouble, and we'll come back to that. We'll do some other mixing later. Now I want to point out a convenience color that I've really been enjoying recently. This is Gamlen's, all of these are Gamlen colors. This is quinacridone violet. And while the dioxazine purple that I just mixed is a fairly standard staple of the palette, this is a quinacridone color, a violet, and you can see that it's sort of a purpley magenta color. And it's a color that I've really been enjoying using recently. And I just want to point out that it's something that I'll talk about in class from time to time. I don't have it on the supply list yet, but it's a color that we'll talk about in class because I do find it helpful sometimes. But if you only have your dioxazine purple, you can make your dioxazine purple more of a color like this, like the quinacridone violet, just by adding some permanent rose to it, or some quinacridone red. So you can see, and quinacridone red is definitely on my supply list, you can see that when you add the quinacridone red, which is also known in some other brands as permanent rose, it's sort of that hot pink magenta-ish color. You can see that I can get something in the ballpark of this color. But I like this for its convenience, this quinacridone red. I'm sorry, quinacridone violet. Now I wanted to also talk about a convenience color. You guys know my staple for a brown on the palette is the transparent red oxide. And the transparent red oxide is only found in the Gamlen 1980 as far as the Gamlen brand is concerned. It doesn't come in their main range of colors. It comes in their less expensive range of colors, but it's a terrific color, and it is like a transparent burnt sienna. And so you can see if you've used burnt sienna, which everybody has, it's so common. This is a burnt sienna, sort of a brick orangey brown, but it is more transparent and it mixes beautifully. Now, what I don't have on my palette is a burnt umber, and I've been getting, which is a dark brown, more of a traditional brown, less of that orangey brown. I've been finding that I can make a alternative brown or an additional brown by taking sap green, permanent rose, quinacridone red I should call it, mixing those together. There's a ton of ways to make blacks and browns, but this is making an alternative brown using my sap green, quinacridone red, sap green, quinacridone red, and a little bit of the Indian yellow. And get that good and mixed up. And I can still see some of the reddish quality to it, so let's take a look. Let's add a little white to it and see what it looks like. When you add white to your dark colors, you really see your properties. Okay, well that's pretty good. That looks like a burnt umber right from the tube. So you can see that if I want to have a couple of browns on my palette, this is extremely versatile. Like I said before, the transparent red oxide, I use it in place of burnt sienna. And if I want to do, I don't have burnt umber on my palette. I don't like how it dries. It dries kind of dull. So I found that you can make a homemade alternative to it quite nicely by putting the sap green, the quinacridone red, little Indian yellow. And you play with those ratios till you get something that doesn't look like that other brown anymore. We can make all kinds of browns, blacks, grays, obviously. And what else did I want to point out? Okay, so the importance, I want to go back to the importance of adding some white to your dark colors as you're preparing your palette. So for example, say I've got this pale or halftone orangey brown color, and I want to adjust it. If say I'm looking at a version of this color, but it looks like it's got a little bit of purple in it. And so if I just go right to my purple as it is right from the tube and say to myself, I want purple in it, but I add the purple in this value range as it comes from the tube, look at how it disturbs the value that I've already mixed up. It just takes it over. It makes it really dark. So, but if I have some purple already mixed up that is already in that value range, I can gently add it into this color and you can see it affecting the color in a way that's not disturbing the value. It's not changing the shade dramatically like that just did. Okay? We deal with that all the time with many of our tube colors. So many of our tube colors come out of the tube really dark. It's seldom we use them that dark. So that's why it's really important to set up some of your colors that come out of the tube dark into their middle value range. Okay?